Assalam-o-Alaekum. So we are back with the third and last video on our facial recognition attendance project. In first part we did facial recognition. In second part we added liveness check to avoid false detections over pictures of the face instead of live faces. In this part we'll be using pygame to make like this kind of nice interface. Like I have like a represent like my camera on this side, and we have like a nice background, and we have a name, date and time written here. So we'll be using pygame to do all of that. We'll also be using xlwings to add Excel recording features. So let's say if a student comes on like sees in the camera, and then if the student presses enter, it should be able to enter the name of the student, detected the date and the time. And if the student tries to enter its name again, it should say already entered and should not enter it. Also there is like a sheet with the date on it, and the project should be able to make new sheet every day with the right date. And of course there are many models we have to select from dface library to further better the detection or recognition of our faces. So we'll be finalizing the project now with pygame and xlwings. So do check out the previous parts, because we'll be continuing from the second part's code. So let's get to it. Alright, so first we need to open our conda prompt, that is anaconda prompt, and we need to activate our environment. So we're going to activate, and the environment name was face recog attendance. You might have named it something else, so you have to look at it what the name was, but now I'm in the environment. Now we need to install some libraries, some APIs. Right, so what do we need to install? First we need to install pip install. We need to install pygame, so you're gonna do pip install pygame. Right, so pip install pygame. Right, so first you want to do that. When it is installed, and it's gonna take like a minute or two. The second API we need to install is xlwings. So we're gonna do pip install xlwings. The xlwings is for Excel integration, Excel writing features to keep records of attendance. The third library we need to install is keyboards, because when I'm pressing enter, it should enter the name of the student, the date and the time of that lodging. Right, so you're gonna do pip install keyboard in order to recognize the key press. Right, after getting all of these libraries, I think we are done. We'll come back if we need something else. So we're gonna go back Jupyter Notebook. I'm gonna open my Jupyter Notebook by writing Jupyter Notebook and wait for Jupyter Notebook to open. So now when the Jupyter Notebook is finally opened, we can go to our working repository. So it was for us, it was here. We integrated our liveness.model in part 2. We also have like the test JPEG, we have the database where we have folders of people we wanted to recognize, and pictures of those people in these folders. And we also have our previous code which we have written. It has all the libraries imported for liveness and facial recognition, but of course we want to make like a nice GUI, and we'll use pygame for that. And we also want to include Excel record keeping in this. So let's start. We can start by importing some libraries like date time. Right, I think it's date time. Yeah, it's date time, pygame, and keyboard. Right, we can start by importing those, and we already have import TensorFlow and everything. We can also import xlwings here. So for import xlwings, I think xlwings is the name, as xw. Right, we can do that. And yes, so after doing that, we'll be initializing some work. What do we need initially? First, for xlwing, this is like the xlwings part. Right, for xlwings, what we want is we want to first assign that which book should we start from Excel has multiple sheets. If we go to Excel, it has like multiple sheets, and first we have to initialize that which sheet it should start on. So what we want is initially we wanted to check the date on that day, and after checking the date we wanted to create a sheet with that particular date and then write on it, right? Write our record our attendance on it, right? So what we'll do is we will first we will create an Excel file. So we will say that if there is no Excel file, we can just write workbook equals xw.book, and we are going to make an Excel file. We can name it anything, so I'm going to name it attendance.xlsx. right? After that we are going to make a sheet name with that particular, like we're going to create a sheet. So you're going to say, all right, what's going to be a sheet name? Sheet name is going to be date time dot date dot today. It is going to give like the today's date dot is ISO format, right? So what we need is that sheet name is going to be this. It won't create sheet, but if we like execute it, we'll see that the sheet name is going to be the date at that date, right? Now we're gonna do is we wanted to check that if that this sheet name exists, then it should write on it. But if this sheet name does not exist in this Excel file, it should create that sheet and then write on it, right? So we have to initialize our worksheet. So we're gonna say, all right, worksheet, try that if we can make workbook. In this workbook, if we can find sheets, if we can find this sheet. So we want to say that let's find out that if in this workbook it can find sheet with this name, and this is going to be like the date of that today. We are using date time library to find out the date at that day. So if this sheet name exists, so initialize it as worksheet. If not, then we need to create it. So accept, then create that worksheet. So we're gonna worksheet is equals to workbook dot sheets dot add. So we need to add that sheet if it doesn't exist initially, right? So that's like the creation of that sheet. So we can write initializing workbook, that is the Excel file and worksheet, right? Next, what we can do, this is also an xlwings part, we can like comment it so we know that at what part we are working at. Now what we want is, in Excel we want columns like this, A1, AB and AC. We want the name, we want it to write the name, the date and the time. We want like 3 columns, name, date and time. So after creating the sheet, we wanted to write name, date and time, name and A1, B in B1 and time in C1, right? So how can we write that? So we can say that all right, go to worksheet, whatever the worksheet that is. So worksheet dot range, and what like dot range, after that we have to define which column are we talking about, which column and row. So it's A1, and in A1 the value, make the value as student, right, or student name. So we can write student name, or we can just write student, right? Similarly, we're gonna say worksheet dot range dot B1, and in B1 column add the value. And what should be the value? The value should be date, right? So we can go all caps on this. Worksheet dot range C1. I'm a really clumsy writer, I know that. Time, right? So you can write that. Okay, so after doing that, what do we need is we need to also make an array of students. And why do we want to make that? Because we don't want the Excel file to re-enter a student, right? So we don't want it if the student like enters and lodges or enters his or her attendance, and if he tries to or she tries to enter it again, we want it to say that like your name is already entered. The way, like, in order to do that, we have to make sure that this project has some way of knowing that how many students are there. So of course there are multiple ways to do that, but it should have a way of knowing that how many students have it already entered. So there are multiple ways to do that, but the way we are going to do it, we are going to save an array of students. So whenever it will add any student, it will append to this array. So by looking at this array, the project will know this student is already in the Excel file and this student already exists, right? After doing all of that, we can move on to pygame part. So we can just write pygame part, right? So in pygame part, first we'll try to create a background, right? So we'll need a background image. You can choose any background image. I have like a wall image. I'll show you just in a bit. So first we need to initialize pygame. So we'll write pygame.initialize, that is pygame.init. After initializing pygame, we need to choose some colors for the text and background. So while we can just write RGB colors whenever we need them, it is like better to just define them and save them in a variable. So I'm going to write pygame text. So I can just write pygame txt, and I can like, this is a color I've already chosen, that is a darkish green, like a yellow green, something like that. So 300, 112, 50. So if I try to success this color, you can see that if I write color, I hope Google can give it to me. 39, 112, yeah, 39, 112, 50. This color for the text. Of course you can choose like any colors. If I write colors, Google, right? So I think or colors hex, I guess. If I write, I'll get the palette, a color palette. I think I can get it, right? Or if I just write any color, I think I can get that, right? Yes. So you can choose like any color. You have to write color in a hex, I guess, and then you can choose any color and it will give you like the RGB value for it, and you can like choose that. So I chose that one in the project, so I have that. Then pygame background. So what should be like the text background? So there's like a text and I want to make like a box behind the text as a background. So I want it to be like the lighter green. It's like a lighter side, so it's 154, 179, 157. So if I like put that color here, you can see it's like a lighter side. It's all like a lighter side. So I'll get that. Of course you can change these numbers whenever you want. Then we have font for these texts. So I can write font as cv2.font Hershey simplex. I can use that. Of course you can choose something else if you want. Of course pygame font, like that's the font that we are going to use for cv2, right? For what's going to be pygame font, like the font of the text we are intending to be like to write with the help of pygame. These are going to be pygame. That's we're going to initialize with pygame.font. The same font we'll be using for that. Dot font, and it's going to be free sans bold.ttf, and the size of that font I want it to be 32. So that's the initialization of fonts. Next we want to initialize the screen we'll be working with, right? Like what's going to be the size of the screen of pygame. So we can just say screen is equals to pygame dot display dot set mode, right? And we now need to write the size of the screen is the way we are going to have. So I chose 960, 540 for my project. So that's like a 16 by 9 screen. I think it's the half for 18. I think it's 920. What was like the double of 920? My math's getting so worse. 960 stubble will be 18, not 1920, right? So it's 1920 by 1080. Just like a half of 1920 by 1080. So like the ratio stay the same, but it will be like smaller. So you can just write like the size of your screen, so it will like cover your whole screen. It can do that. You can like change the size of the screen of pygame that we're using. Of course, we also need background on our screen. What should be like a background? So we're gonna say background. So it's gonna be pygame.image.load. So what's gonna be the background image, right? So we can choose any image we want. So I'll go for school. So I can just go and search school, and I can like find any background I want. I can like find any background. I think this background, like we can go for like a different background, like this background or this background we want. So we can just, I think we can go for this background, right? So we can go and save image, and we can save it at our locations. I'm gonna go machine learning. I have my working repositories, YouTube dface. It's gonna be here, right? So I'm gonna just save it with background image, right? So after saving it, I can just go there and write down. So load the image background.image.jpg, right? I can do that, and then I can just write background again is equals to pygame. I want to, of course, when I put the background, I have to change its size to match with the size of the screen, or it won't like cover the whole thing. So we can, initially I think we can transform it. We might need it, we might not need it. I might remove it, but we can somehow change the size of it. It's going to be 0 comma, and then it can be 0.8, like you want to decrease the size, increase the size, so on. So let me keep it 1 for now, because we don't know if it will fit our background or not, right? And then we want to draw it on our screen. So again, it's split background, and from where we should draw it. So we have to give the top left corner of the image, and then it will draw it from there. So you're gonna say draw it from 0 comma 0, right? We want to draw it from 0 comma 0 all the way, from 0. So top left corner, we want to draw it from 0 comma 0, right? And that's it. So I'm going to execute whatever we have written so far, and let's see if it works. So far we have just create the background for pygame and everything. So yeah, we have an error here, and it says no file. So yeah, we have to make an Excel file. So we can just make an Excel file as attendance.xls. So I think we can just choose that, save as, and we can save it where we can save it where we want to save it. So we can just save it on our repository. So machine learning, YouTube, deepface, facial recognition. I can save as attendance, right? I can save it, and let's try running our code again. So this is the file where my CV2 code is working, and here we should we have a pygame window, and we should have a background here. Which we don't have for some reason. I know why. Let's see why we don't have that. Yeah, it's just because it's not continuously making it, right? So it just made it, and now it's gone. So yeah, but our pygame is working. That's what it says, right? So our pygame is working, but we have to with every loop we have to create that background again and again, so that we can see our background. Now moving on, we can give name a variable running as true, right? And we can say while running is true. We can do that. That's I think appropriate way. It might help us in future. But if we want to come out of this loop, we will put running as false, so it will come out of this loop, right? We can do that. Now in order to run this, what do we need? First we need to know the time of that day, so we can record the date and time of that day. So every loop we want to check what is the time and what's the date, right? So we can write the moment, what is the moment at that time. So it's gonna be, we are going to know that by knowing date time. So date time dot now, right? So moment gives all the date and time and everything. So what's gonna be our hour? So our hour going to be the moment dot hour. What's gonna be our minute? So our minute is going to be moment dot minute. What's gonna be our day? Our day is going to be moment dot day. And what's gonna be our month? Because we'll need day, month and year, right? So moment dot month, and what's gonna be our year? Our year going to be moment dot year, right? That's all we are going to have. So we are going to make our date finally as day, and then we'll have a dash, right? Day, month, and then dash, and then we need year as our date, right? And then we need our time. So what's gonna be our time? It's gonna our time is going to be hour and then minute, right? And then we can close. So we have finally saved date and time. Next thing we want to check if the time has changed. Let's say that if the day changes, if the day has changed, if the date changes, we want it to make a new sheet. So it will keep on checking the date and time, and if the date changes, it should create a new sheet, right? So how are you gonna make sure that the day changes? How are you gonna tell it that if the day changes, you have to create a new sheet, right? So how can we do that? What we can do is we can initially tell it date today, right? So we can let day today, right? So we can say day today. So how are you gonna know what's the day today? So we're gonna t naught. That's t naught, like the today's time. It's like a time at 0 hour. It's day dot today, right? So we're gonna say what's the date today, and we just need the day in that. We don't need the whole date. So we're gonna say date time dot day. So in t naught, when the program will initialize, when the program will start, it will have a time to it, right? So it's like today is this day, and we're gonna check. I'm gonna say that if day is not equals to t naught, so let's say that the program, like the day from which we have started, if the day you're getting after every loop, if the day is not equals to t naught, which was like the previous day, you should do what? First you'll save, you should like update the day now, right? So you should update the day, and then there will be a new t naught, and we'll updating, and then it will check if the day is not equal to the t naught. That means the day has changed. It will be updated if the day changed. So first change t naught, update the value of t naught, and then make a new worksheet. So we'll be like doing all of that again, right? We have the attendance, right? So we'll be adding a new worksheet. So we'll do like adding a new worksheet again. So what we need, we'll do worksheet. What will be a new worksheet? It's gonna be workbook, right? So we're gonna say workbook. That will be attendance dot sheets dot add. And what should be the name of our worksheet? It's gonna be the date. Like before, we want to like add the date. Like this, we want to add the date. Even in sheet name, we added the date, right? So we want to add the date as the name of the worksheet. And then what do we need again? We need to do all of this again. So we can just take all of this and then paste it here, right? So when we paste it, we can just give some tab spaces, and so we want it to write student on A1, date on B1, and time on C1, right? So when I do all of that, and also we want it to empty the array of student, right? I think it was not students, right? It's students. So we want it to empty the array of students, that like no students are here anymore. So if the student comes again, the array should be empty, and it will check the right student is not there. If we don't empty the array, the students came last day, will still be in the array, and the project will think, right, he's already entered, why he's trying to enter again. So we want to empty the array. We want to like really reset the whole system, right? Now after defining all of that, we can go on and then add the frames in pygame. Of course, we don't need OpenCV now to show the frames, so we can just comment it out. We won't be looking at OpenCV to check for it. Gonna break it out. So what are you gonna do, right? I don't think we'll need we'll need OpenCV to put text and everything, right? So if liveness is 1 and all that. So if liveness is 1, we don't need to check for if it's fake or real. So we don't need to do that. So if prediction is equals to 1, so if liveness is equals to 1, what do we want? We only then we want it to make rectangle on the frame and everything, right? So we're gonna say if liveness is equals to 1, so you're going to move all the code of making rectangle and everything under liveness Unicode, because we only want to put the code when the identity is detected, when something is detected, some face is recognized from the database, which is this condition, and in that condition we only want to draw the box if it's real, else we don't want to draw it, right? So it's gonna put the text, not the real. We don't want to put real as the text, so we can like delete that. We just all we want it to do is create the box, they create the rectangle behind the text on the rectangle, and just put the text, which is like the name, over the bounding box, right? We want to do that. We wanted to do that. After that, what do we want? We want to render the text too on the pygame. So what we need is, we want our frame. We're gonna just put that frame onto pygame. So we want to put this frame which has the rectangle and text into the pygames, like over the background. We also want to put text over the background. So when the real, when the face is recognized and it is real, under liveness we want to put the text. So what's gonna be there are going to be 3 texts: name text, and the date, and the time, right? So let's say we're gonna say name text as n is equals to txt. So name text gonna be, the way we are going to write it is pygame font, right, dot render, right? So I think we initialized pygame font, right? So we're gonna say, right, pygame font, this is the pygame font. By using this pygame font, we are going to render. What do we need to render? We need to render the name of that person there on pygame, right? So you want to render the name of that person. We can just write true here and pg text, right? That's like the text color of that, and that's like the background color of that. So background pg.background. Similarly, we're gonna do pygame.text. Sorry, it is going to be text rectangle, right? So you're gonna text rectangle, the text rectangle. So and text dot get rectangle. That's after that we have the text. Now every text is like enclosed in a, like we want to enclose it in a rectangle. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say, all right, first we initialize the text. This is the text we want to write. We want to write the name, and then we've gone to like get the rectangle of the text, like in whatever space that text comes, we want to make a rectangle around it, and after that we want to mark the position of that rectangle. So end text dot center, text rect dot center, and I want its position to be, we're gonna select x and y, like top left x and y. So the way I did what is 960 minus 200, so it's gonna be 960. Like the width is like a screen size is 960 by 540, right? So we're gonna make it 960 minus 200 and 540 divided by 2. So it's gonna be like somewhere in the middle and somewhere on the right side, right? Next we want the date text. So we're gonna do the same. Date text is equals to pygame font with the same font render. We want to show the date. We're gonna say true pg text. I think it's pgtxt text, not pgtxt text. for the background color. So we're gonna show the background color. So we're gonna remove it here. We're gonna remove it from here. BG, right, background, and then we're gonna say dtext rectangle. We're gonna need the rectangle of it. So we're gonna write dtext.get a rectangle, and then we want to write the position of it. So we can write dtext. No, we just need a dtext or center. So what will be the center of that rectangle? It's gonna be like the same, like the x-axis is gonna be the same, because 960 minus 200. For y-axis we want it to be like a little down, like below our name. So it's gonna be 540 divided by 2 plus 40. Right, so you can do like below it, plus 40, like 40 pixels below it. The same thing we should do for the time. So I can just write t, right, and here I will want to write time. Everything is same, and instead of 40 I can write it 80, right? So that's like we just drew all the text, and then we need to blit it. In pygame we have to blit it in order to draw it, right? So we have like initialized everything. Now we're gonna blit everything. So we're gonna say on screen. What is screen? Is we have defined a screen. Here is the screen. So this is the screen display. So we want to draw on it. So we'll say that on screen. What do we need to draw? We need to draw end text, that which has the name on what? On end text rectangle, right? So let's just say ntxt text rectangle, right? And text rectangle, right? So end text rectangle, right? And then we need to do same stuff for everything. So we can just write it here, Control C, Control V, and instead of end text we wanted to draw d text, and we have already defined their position and text and everything. So we just needed to draw it now, right? D text and then d text. So that's how it's going to draw it. Now we have drawn all the text on the pygame background. Since we have a screen, because we should not want to update the background again and again because it stays stable. I think if we update the screen every time, while the while loop is running, we can check our progress. If we do pygame dot display dot update, right, that's, and then for event in pygame dot event dot get. So we want to see that if I press the cross sign, so if there is any event on pygame screen, so if that event dot type is actually quit, so you're gonna write pygame quit, right? It's pygame quit, it's not an object, right? It says pygame quit, so I want to do running false. So running should be false. So next time it will go to the while loop, it's gonna say false, so it won't enter the while loop, right? We don't need CV to destroy all windows because we are not looking at it via CV2. So we're gonna release the camera and we're gonna quit the pygame. So that's what I know. So we should be able to see, since we have only drawn text and date on that, so we should be able to see that and the name on that. So let's just try to run it. So I have turned my camera off and I'm going to run it, and we should be able to see the background and the text on it. Alright, I've gotten an error. It says tuple object is not callable. Okay, so it's not text center. I have to put equal sign here. Yeah, there's like text like the center and then equal sign, and that's like the center of that rectangle. I think we can run it and see. So like opening the Excel file, attendance Excel file. It has already written student date and time. And see, like I'm looking at the screen. We haven't put the code to write, like to draw the screen, like the camera on it, but we like got the background. I can decrease like the size of this image if I go there on the size part where I describe the background here. If I write 0.8 or 0.5 here or 0.8 here, that's 0.8 here, and then I run the code again, the background will shrink to like 80% of its size. Alright. So yeah, that shrunk. So what, like since like the size is incompatible, so I think I have to like give it like 0.9% of its size or something. But yeah, so if I'm not looking at the camera, like I'm looking, it like looked at the camera and it should wrote Zan and all that. But the reason why I haven't put command to draw the camera image, it is not here, so it's gonna be here. Right, so that means our code is working for now. So what do we need next? We want it to draw the frame we extracted from here, like the frame which has like the camera input and all the drawing on it, everything, like this frame which has the rectangles drawn on it, everything. We want it to be drawn on the pygame, and we want it to be drawn every time, not just when it is like it passes the liveness test. We want it to be drawn every time, so we can define it or code it. We can like code it outside these conditions, right? So we're gonna draw code it in while loop. So we're gonna say, all right, our image is equals to pygame. That's the way to build an image into it. So pygame dot image dot from buffer, and what we want to do frame, and we're gonna change this to string. So we want to draw our frame on pygame, and we want its shape to be like stay the same. So we're gonna do 1 -1, and we're gonna do, and we want it to be RGB, so we're gonna write BGR, right, blue, green and red. And then we wanna do pygame dot transform. Of course I would like to change the shape of it, so I'm gonna keep it 1, and then we'll see like if if I want to change the size, decrease the size or increase the size of it. Then we want to get the size of the image, so we can say get size. And now what I want is like the curved corners of the image. It will look good. So the way to do that is that we can say rect image pygame first. They're like concept of surface and everything, so you can just code it. I can make like a different video to explain, like I can like make a real series on pygame, I guess. So pygame dot src alpha, you're gonna like that. Then pygame dot draw dot rectangle, so we want the rectangle image, and we want to make it white, and we can do 0, 0, the size, right. And we can give the border radius, so the background will be white. We can give the border radius as 10. We can increase the border radius if we want to like increase the curve. We can give it 10, right? Then we wanna do is image is equals to image dot copy convert alpha, and then we're gonna do, well, now we want to, like after doing all of that to the image, we want to split our image, draw our image. That's gonna be rectangle image. We want it to be drawn from 0, 0, and then none pygame dot blend RGB min, and then I want to draw this image on the screen. So that's the part screen dot blend. You can find like this code written as is on their website. If you want round corners on your image, so they are like written codes here. You can just copy and paste them here, and then you can use those codes. Like if you don't want, like without understanding them that much, you have like a basic understand, like this is the radius. Yeah, you can increase, you can try changing this and see what happens. But yeah, this is the code which is actually responsible to draw your image on the screen, right? And if you don't want rounded corners, you can remove this code, and it like you can just take the frame and draw it without like rounding the corners. So you can remove. So I can just write round corners, right? This is the code for round corners. Right. So this is the code for round corners. If you don't need it, you can just remove it. Right. And this is like the position of top left corner of my frame. So it's like top left corner, so I want to draw it like at 20 and 9, like 20 and 90. So I can of course also change. So let's me run that. Okay, I've got an error. Transform image 0.1. It says that it's not callable, and what could be the reason behind that? Yeah, because transform dot roto zoom, yeah, like that. For like the background, it should be transform dot roto zoom. So you can add here it is roto zoom, right? And then you can add image dot 0.1. Let's try it. Let's try again. So here we are. So we have rounded corners. Here we are. I think the size of the frame is very big, so we need to decrease that. So what I can do is I can just go there and write 0.8, I guess, and then try again and see if the size decreases. Of course size will decrease, but if like it's that appropriate size I want. We can also change the position of that frame by changing these coordinates. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good size. 0.8 is a good size, right? So of course I can change the position. If I want a little bit on the upside, I can change this, so I can make it 80 instead, and the frame will move upwards. So yeah, that's it. So we pretty much have that detection. Now what I need is that whenever it is not detecting anything, I don't want this name here and the date and time. So of course we need to like delete it again if it's not there. So we need to add those features to it. Right, I think one way to solve that issue, that the text don't disappears or vanishes when we are not looking at the camera, is to update the screen, like update the background. Because like how Pygame works, it is that it updates updates the screen every time we draw on it. So before drawing the frame and text onto the screen, we can just draw the background on the screen first. So we can just, in every time it loops around, we can draw the background first and then everything else, so the text can disappear behind the background, and you can like redraw the whole frame and text. So here it's gonna draw the background, and here it is going to draw the the text and the frame on it. So every time it will draw the background, so the text behind it will, we won't be able to see that. So it will look like it's like refreshing it every time. So now if I run it, I can see by just adding this line before any before the checking mark, before checking for the days and everything, if we update the background, we can see that it says Zen and date and all that. But if it doesn't detect it, and we cannot see it. So yeah, we can see that. Now all we need to do is to add the keyboard function into it, so that it can detect the key press. So in order to do that, we can do is that if it's live here, we can say that when we are able to see the name, if we can say that if keyboard is pressed, right, so if keyboard is pressed, dot is pressed, and we hear enter on it, so we can write enter, enter. So if name not in, so whatever the name is we have defined here, so if this name, if you press enter, so if the name in at that point of loop is not in students, right, if it's not in students, so what do we need to do? What we need is that it should write the name, date and time on A1, right, and then after that on A3 and then A4. So we have to have a variable which can specify that where we are in the row, so it can save the number of rows. So if the S2 is booked, it should be S3, so we know that the next time we need to write in A3 and then A4 and all that. So we can like define the S variable. So we can say the S initially should be not 1, but it should be initially should be 2, because A1 already has student date and time, so it should be S2. So S initially should always be true, sorry 2, it should initially always be 2, and when the new day comes it should get back to 2, right? So S is equals to 2 here too. And then we can say that do that on worksheet dot range and write on AS. So if it's S2, so it will write on A2, right? And what do we want to write? We want to write the value as name. So on A2 we want to write name, and then on B2 we want to write the date, and C2 we want to write the time, right? Yes. So here we can write the date, so date is this which we defined previously. This is going to be the date and this is going to be the time, so we can write date and we can write time. So it will write date and time there, right? And then we want to update the value of S, so the next time it should write the name and everything on A3 and B3 and C3, right? So if we now run it, so we'll be able to see, we should be able to see that I think I have written like lowercase c. I don't know if that will work, but let's try that if the lowercase c works. But now if we try to run it, we should be able to see our name, date and time here when it detects us. Okay, there's an error. So if keyword is pressed, it is underscore pressed, so it's a mistake. Is underscore pressed. We can do Codel, restart and run all. Alright, okay, so it can detect me, right? So we have an Excel file here. Alright. So if I press enter now, it should add my name. So yes, it does. See, and if I press again enter, it will enter my name infinite number of times. So we need two things here now. First, we don't want it to enter my name again if it's already in the in the record, right? So in our code we haven't like appended any students to check, because there was a condition that if it's not in the students, so every time we are entering it, we should write here that it should append the name in the student. So I should write students dot append name and then try again, right? So kernel restart run all. Let's see. So next time it won't enter the name, because it will check that if name is not in student, so student can in student there will be the name. So I should like delete this, right? So if I enter it, there's Zan, but if I try to enter it again, it won't enter. Now I want some type of prompt here, so whenever I press enter, it should say enter here, and if I try to press enter again, it should say already entered. So we have some kind of prompt here which can specify what's happening in the background, what's just the program thinking right now. So we're gonna add that. Now in order to be able to show the enter sign, we first need a variable, because we want to show the enter sign and we want it to stay there for like couple of frames, and then we want it to disappear. Similarly, we want to show already enter sign, we want to stay there for a couple of frames, and then we want to disappear. So we need two things. We need one flag to show that if it showed that already entered sign or entered sign, right? What it should write, already enter. So there will be like one variable or one flag for that, and there should be another variable which should have numbers that we can say, all right, show it that many frames. So that number should that number should increase until that condition is met, something like that. If you can figure out what I mean. So what we can do is, I think I can explain it by just doing it. We can write another variable that is I, and I can write I as 0 first thing, and then I can initiate or assign two flags, two variables. One is entered variable, that should be false in the start, and one should be already entered variable, so all entered variable, that should be false again, right, in the start. So what we should do is, of course, every day when we do it, we have to reset it. So I can say that I is 0 and entered should be 0, enter should be false, not flash false, and already entered should be false too. Alright, and then I can go here and I can say that if I is less than 30, so let's say like I will increase I every time it will go into this condition. So I say until I is less than 30, and I can increase and decrease that variable to increase and decrease the time I want that text to be there. So if I is less than 30 and pressed is equals to 2, right, if I is less than 30 and enter, not pressed, entered is equals to true, then you need to do what? And let's just add one more thing, and already entered is equals to false. So what do we need? We want to blit the entered sign there. So what you can do is you can just go there, take this, which is used to blit or print the text here, and I can just enter that. So I can just do that and do that. The text, right? I can just say enter text, right? I can just write e text here, and I can increase it from 80 to 80, 90, 120, I guess. I can just do it 120, and it will write entered, right? But entered there, and I want to increase the length of that I want to increase I, right? And I also want to blit it, so I can say screen dot blit. What do I want to blit? I want to blit the text, e text, on e text rectangle. I want to blit it on this rectangle, right? So if I run it now, you'll be able to see that, right? So if I run it now, okay, so whenever it detects it and whenever I press enter, it should go here and it should turn entered into true, right? It should turn enter into true. So we know that it has entered, and so it can run it, right? Right. Okay, I think that's it, right? And we can add another condition that if I is less than 30, because we also wanted to stay there for a couple of frames, and entered is equals to false and all entered is equals to true, what do I want it to do? I want it to write the text, so I can write AE as all entered, right? AE text, and I want it to write already entered, and I want to write at 120, right? And then how am I going to, and of course I want to do I plus equals to 1, and what I want is that I want to if it presses again and it should, like, what will make already entered value true, right? The reason why already entered value will be true, that if the name is in the students. So I think we don't need a student's value, we can just say if the entered is false, right? We can just say entered is true and it's a true. We don't need already entered, I guess. What we can do is we can just do I is less than 30, enter is equals to false, enter, we just don't need to see enter, you know, right? It's like because if name is not in student, it won't be here, right? So it won't go, but you know what, it will go elif. So if I is less than 30 and enter is equals to true, it's gonna do this, and I is equal to I is less than 30 and name in students, right? So name is already in students, so it will check rise less than 30 and name is already in students. So if the person is trying to enter it again and it presses enter and it checks that alright, enter is true, so it's gonna write this, and you know, and of course it's enter is true, it's gonna write this and it's gonna go on there, and then when it will be done, it will go here and it will write else entered is equals to false, so it will make it false, right? So if the person then tries to, if the person presses enter, so of course it's not gonna go there, it's not gonna append it, but it's gonna go here, it's gonna say right, I is less than 30 and this person and that name is in the students, and enter is false, right? Because it will make it false, so we have to do I is equal to 0 again. So yeah, so we can do that. I think it will work. Let's see if it works, right? Let's see if it works, and we don't need already entered, I guess, as a variable here. So let's see, let's put already enter. There can be more graceful ways of doing that, I guess, but yeah, that's how I am doing it. So alright, so I executed it. So if I press enter, it will show Zan. It's not showing entered for some reason, and if I press if I press it again, it won't enter it, but it will say entered, but not the first time. Why is it not doing that? Let's check. Okay, I think I get what's happening. The thing is that it is not printing this, it is actually printing this. So I have to do AE here, so it will print, it is actually trying to print already entered, because when it entered get false, so it goes here, right? So it start going in this loop, right? Because I is less than 3 and it doesn't like it doesn't concern the enter. So the only time we want it to go in this loop is when I is less than 30 and name is student and the key is pressed. So and the keyboard dot is pressed enter. So and when the key press like the key is pressed as enter, so I think we do need another flag for already entered, right? So we end up needing it, right? So we can say, right, yeah, already entered, back to that, already entered is equals to false, since I have made it before, so kind of, yeah, I used that flag. Why did I use that flag? But yeah, we end up needing that. That's how you learn, right? So already entered, so I can say that, yeah, whenever you enter it, right, whenever you enter it, um whenever you enter it, you make sure that yeah, so enter should be true, right? And if name is not in student, else, you know, if the person press it and name isn't the student, that means else. So what you need to do is you need to make all entered as true, right? So either enter is true, it's not there, so let me make all entered true. So we can go and we can say, right, if name, if all entered is true, right? So it like covers this condition too. So if all entered is true, right, so write that, and then when everything is done, just make all entered as false too, right? So I think it will work. So you can just go ahead and put it inside that while inside the condition, liveness condition, and then we can run it. So now when I'm running it, if I press enter, it says entered, and it should go now. After some time, I can reduce I less than that number so that it stays for less, and then I press enter again, it says already entered. So I think we are done. We just made a facial recognition attendance system which takes which recognizes our face, and then it takes an input, it enters it, but if I press if I like press enter again, it says already entered. So yeah, and if I do that, it just goes away, right? So that's, I think that's it for facial recognition attendance system. Of course, I'm like really looking forward to how you can improve it more. So of course, the ways to improve it is you can either go here and try different models to detect for faces, you know, you can do all kind of stuff here. So you know how it works. I'll be like linking my GitHub repository where you'll find all of this code and everything if you found it hard to follow. So I welcome all the suggestions and everything, so do let me know if you have any questions in comments. We'll see you in next series, I guess. So take care, bye.